Hello, this is John Dodge. I'm the community manager of the Enterprise CIO Forum, and I'm here again with Joel Dobbs, president and CEO of the Talent Management Group. Hi, Joel.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's good to
Good.
talk to you again. You wrote a post called The Privacy Paradox. Let me start there. What is the privacy paradox?
What we see today is a conflict between what companies are required to do in order to protect the privacy of their customers and their employees, and what we see people doing through social media. For instance, as I mentioned in the post, in my last company, in addition to my CIO role, I served as chief privacy officer. And in that industry, which is biopharmaceuticals, we had a tremendous amount of legal requirements that we had to fulfill to protect people's privacy. Yet, all one has to do is look at Twitter, look at Facebook, look at people's private web pages, and people post all kinds of things about themselves. And so what you have is this conflict between regulations that require us to protect privacy and a growing population of people who think nothing about posting their innermost thoughts and private information for anyone to see.
Well, as you know, your post spurred me on to do a post saying that the gap is somewhat generational, that the Gen Yers, those born in the 80s and into the mid 90s, don't really care about privacy, and that even when we get solicitations or when Amazon takes our personal information and sends us targeted ads, that generation is very used to it, yet everybody older than that thinks that's a violation of their privacy. Is this a largely generational phenomenon?
Well, I think there's two things going on. I think you're correct that part of it is generational because you have a group of people who grew up with technology. They're very comfortable with it. They're very familiar with it. But I think there's another component to that, and that has to do with just age. When I was 18 or 19 or 20 years old, I did a lot of reckless things as well, as I'm sure most of us did. And what happens at that age, you really don't have much to lose. You don't have much in the way of financial assets, reputation, things like that. And so what happens is there's a tendency to just be a little more carefree. And I think when you combine that with the fact that this younger generation has grown up with the internet, has grown up with social media, they don't really necessarily see that as a problem. That becomes a problem for them when their identity is actually stolen. And I know a young man in his early 20s who is dealing with an issue right now where his identity has been stolen, not through anything he did apparently, but he's learning that this is a major issue to unwind something like that.
In a sense, you're saying at that age you don't really have an identity, or you're searching for an identity. An identity, if identity is actually something of value. My theory was that the people who enact a lot of the compliance regulations are older baby boomers or Gen Xers who were born during the 70s. And, I tried to look at who were the framers of HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, where you go to the doctor and you have to assign an acknowledgement that they've protected your privacy. And a lot of it seems really useless. But that was enacted in 1996, and Gen Yers were still being born then, so they really
Yeah.
weren't the ones with something to lose. I guess that's a good way to put it. Is if you have something to lose, you care about privacy.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is a lot of the people involved in writing this legislation are lawyers. Nothing against lawyers, no lawyer jokes here, but the reality is when you view things through the legal lens, which largely looks at risk and the likelihood of bad things happening, you tend to view the world a little bit differently. And so there's a lot of this is very protectionist, if you will, to protect people from unlawful exploitation. And you need those kind of rules. There's no doubt about that. But there's only so much that you can do. And a friend of mine is fond of saying you can't regulate stupid. And people will do stupid things from time to time, and there's just really not a lot that we can do about some of that. But it does present an interesting dilemma where you have this paradox with corporations having to go to great lengths to protect privacy, while at the same time those very people sometimes are very reckless about what they say about themselves.
Well, as baby boomers, Joel, I guess we do have something to lose, and we do appreciate that our privacy, at least to some degree, is protected, that there are safeguards in place. Very quickly, would you agree?
I agree.
All right, terrific. Joel Dobbs, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, John.
This is John Dodge, Community Manager of the Enterprise CIO Forum. We'll see you again.